Greetings from Yakult Community Church. Last time I was able to talk about trust, and primarily because of the significant amount of distrust that seems to exist in our culture today. So today I'd like to talk about faith and fear, or to put it another way, hope versus worry. These are age-old battles of human existence. And the real good question is, can faith overcome fear, or hope overcome worry? These are basic struggles of man and issues that we deal with every day, and having faith be overcome fear is foundational to a joyful Christian life. Our mind is a battlefield and is susceptible to being contaminated by the world's ideas and its perspectives. Nourishing the mind with God's Word is critical in this battle. It's not that man reaches a point where faith completely obliterates fear or hope totally eliminates worry, but rather, which dominates your life and your thoughts? So let's look at these two concepts. First, fear. Fear has been a part of human history since the beginning of time. Genesis 3:10. Adam answered God in the garden, "I was afraid because I was naked." Fear has two sides. Positively, fear can become a power when it's helped us recognize how life should be ordered and respected, or motivate us and stimulate us into action. Interestingly, every normal fear has the potential to become an exaggerated fear. It can empower us for action or paralyze or tyrannize us and make us more susceptible to danger at hand. Fear is the most basic of all instincts of living creatures. Fear is the natural process when our physical safety or psychological well-being are threatened. Rational fears, by the way, are learned and vital to our survival. There are times when we should be afraid. Fear is our immediate and intense alarm system that alerts us to danger. For the Christian, it's not a bad thing to feel fragile in our lives, because it provides us an environment where we can trust in Jesus. Fear is beneficial or harmful according to which or whether it aids us or detracts us from achieving God's purposes. Excessive fear is a universal problem. It transcends all geographical regions, age, gender, or even social status. It's an issue that affects the weak and the strong, the young and the old, the rich and the poor. It's an issue that affects our joy and ruins or limits our lives when it's excessive. Being afraid sometime is normal, but if we are fearful most of the time, that's not normal. In fact, it's a spiritual toxin from Satan. There's a difference between being afraid and being immobilized by fear. Excessive fear, if left unchecked, can paralyze us and rob us of our effectiveness in every area of our life. Interestingly, fear can become a radical form of self-centeredness. With Christ's help, you can gain a stable perspective in trying times, escape fear's suffocating grip, and find comfort in God's promises. None of us are beyond or immune to the insecurity or self-doubt, apprehension, and fear, especially since we've been conditioned by our culture to be fearful of people and things and not to fear God. Over the course of everyone's life, each individual will face obstacles, difficulties, failures, and even tragedies. It's through these times in life that either faith is exhibited or fear dominates. God never promised that we'd live a trouble-free life. In fact, Jesus forewarned us that we would have trials and tribulations. In John 16:33, it says, "I have overcome the world." But before that it says, "I told you these things so that you may have peace, and in this world you will have trouble. But take heart." So what about faith? It's almost the exact opposite of fear. In fact, in Hebrews 11, it talks about faith is the confidence or the assurance that something we want is going to happen. It's the certainty that we hope for is waiting for us, even though we can't see it ahead. The world's perspective is seeing is believing. Biblical faith is just the opposite, where we believe without seeing based on God's promises. Faith is the foundation to the Christian's belief system. God has chosen faith as his litmus test to our acceptance of his love. He sees us through the lens of faith. It's not our wealth, our work, our family, our church, or our accomplishments, or our giving, or our successes that's most important to God, but rather our faith and trust in his Son, Jesus Christ. In Romans 1:17 it says, "For in the gospel of righteousness from God is revealed, a righteousness that by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith." We live in an age of fear. Over this last century, we've seen 2 world wars, the potential for annihilation of mankind because of atomic bombs. A rise in worldwide terrorism has been unprecedented, and recently, the release of a man-made biomedical disease on mankind. With the advent of television, radio, internet, any and every major event is instantaneously communicated throughout the world. The media mentality of reporting primarily negative news makes this aspect of the modern world of fear a fear-generating vehicle. Kind of behind the scenes, the rule of thumb is if it bleeds, it leads. Today's negative reporting is accepted as gospel, even though they repeatedly rehash negative news over and over again. In addition, much of today's entertainment revolves around violence, death, and fear. Constantly feeding your mind of this negative information without a proper balance of God's word and promises is certain to generate fear in a Christian's life. We need to recondition ourselves to seek God first. Fear is not the solution to the problems of our life, but the hope in God is. There are more than 300 biblical passages telling us not to fear. And the Bible uses words like fear, afraid, terror, dread, anxious, tremble, shake, and quake over 850 times. When the circumstances appear negative, you have the choice of accepting this natural information or allowing supernatural faith to be exercised. We can diffuse paralysis that goes with fear by trusting God's power. In 2 Timothy 1:7, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Jesus demonstrated how to live a fearless life. The best example for me is in Matthew 14, deadly storm on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus was able to calm the storm and quiet the fears of his disciples. Tragedy or fear of tragedy has a way of bringing us back to reality. The storms can be God's tools to grow faith. And enduring faith is necessary if we're going to defeat fear. The weaker we are, the stronger God's power can be in our lives by exercising faith.